Welcome back to another episode of the How To Home podcast. My name's Aaron Massey, and joining me is Tracy Pendergast, as always. And we've got a very special guest calling us today via Skype. Brad Rodriguez is joining us from Fix This, Build That. And we are talking about ways to kind of establish your DIY confidence, getting started, and how you can transition it into potentially a business.
Yeah, and Brad also has a blog, a YouTube channel, Instagram, and he has a podcast, Free Plan. So there's so many different ways that you can utilize his
He's
knowledge.
multifaceted, prolific across all these platforms. So we're really excited to touch base with him. And before we dive too deep into that, I just want to take a quick second, say thank you to our founding sponsor, FilterBuy, for making this series and this episode possible. FilterBuy is a HVAC filter provider. They manufacture and ship over 600 different size air filters, or you can get custom sizes made. Everything ships within 24 hours, and you save 5% when you subscribe. So super easy. They deliver it on whatever schedule that you need. I have mine set for every 3 months, so they just show up. I can change them out, no problem. And we also want to thank you guys for following us via social media at howtohome_guide on Instagram, or you can find us and interact with us on our website, howtohome.com.
Yeah, and Brad was actually a follower suggestion when we asked for guest ideas.
So yeah, we actually got hit up to talk to you. So we're excited that you're here, and thank you so much again for joining us.
Absolutely. Glad to be on the show.
For those that don't know, Brad has a huge audience on Instagram and across all platforms, really. But for people who maybe aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Brad Rodriguez. I run Fix This, Build That, which is, it started out actually as Instagram, which is interesting. I started off doing home repair and home DIY, and then I found this woodworking thing, and this was way back 2002. So I've been doing this for a long time, but I wasn't doing the content. So then we moved to Nashville in 2013, which is where I grew up. And then I was away from all my other friends, and I found Instagram as a way to share woodworking. So all of a sudden I started sharing my woodworking projects and found this community of woodworkers online. And that's where this whole thing began, is that I was getting feedback. I was really enjoying it. And then I found a lot of people had questions, and they were asking me, well, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And that kind of grew and grew, and the audience just kind of grew with it. Back in the stone ages of Instagram, before video, it was all just pictures and everything. And in 2015, I launched the blog, fixthisbuildthat.com. Went with that, launched my YouTube in 2016, and it's just kind of evolved from there. So it's woodworking, mainly woodworking projects, but I've now started, with the name Fix This, Build That, I did build that for the first 2 years, and then I decided I really want to start incorporating some more home stuff. So now I've done flooring, I've done a whole bathroom remodel, doing small things around the house like kitchen organization, things like that. So I'm really starting to pull in both sides of the home repair as well as the woodworking and DIY. So it's been a fun journey, and that's kind of how it all started, was just on Instagram. And as of actually coming this August, it will have 2 years. I'll be doing this full time. So I was in corporate America for 17 years before that, working a day job, mechanical engineering, process improvement. And now I, sit in my office and talk to people on video chats. So it's awesome.
Yeah. And you did you ever see yourself kind of going this route? Obviously with your corporate America background, did you ever see yourself, I'm going to be a maker full time and work for myself? No,
what the funny part is I remember getting into it, and even when it first started, and when I thought it was probably 2014, a company, Rigid actually, contacted me, and I had built a flip-top tool cart, which was one of my more popular builds for the shop. And they said, and I had a rigid planer on one side and a rigid oscillating spindle sander on the other. And they're like, we love this. This is really awesome. Can we send you a compressor to test out? It's this new thing. And I was like, a free tool? Are you kidding me? This is amazing. And so that was kind of the moment that I was like, this is something that people, that companies would want to kind of, invest in. And then, further down the road, obviously it started coming into compensation. I remember the first blog post I ever did that was paid was $200. And I was on top of the world. I was like, oh my gosh, I just paid $200. This is amazing. So back then, it wasn't, I was like, okay, $200 versus a salary as a mechanical engineer. There's a pretty vast difference there. But like, it was just like one of those slow burns. So it wasn't like back then I thought, oh, maybe one day, but it's just like slow burn, slow build. And so it was just like one day, my wife and I were like, we might be able to do this. Like, this could be a thing if we keep growing it. And so it was a pipe dream. And then it was just one of those things that you wake up one day and you're like, wow, this has really turned into something. So it was not like an aha moment. It was more of just that consistency over time that finally you turn in and you're like, wow, we have something here.
So now that it is your full-time job and not just a hobby, do you find it hard to keep creative? Is the enjoyment still there? Like, what has changed for you?
Yeah, it is. It's like one of those things where, so I was working north of the city and I live south of the city. So I was driving about an hour and a half every day, which, in LA, that's probably like just the trip to the grocery store.
Yeah,
right?
I went to Home Depot. It took me an hour and a half the other day.
But in Tennessee, that's a long drive. So I was spending so much time at the job. I would basically leave at 7 a.m, come back at about 6 p.m, and working in 8 to 5 basically. And when I would get home, I would hang out with the kids, and we have 3 kids, and then have dinner, put them to bed, and then I'd be in the shop from 9 till midnight or 1 a.m. And that's like that, as working the side hustle. That's what I was doing to grow the business. And I just kept thinking, oh, if I could only, when I go full time, this is going to be amazing. And then I went full time. And what I realized is, like, I think a lot of people take for granted, like when they're working this kind of side hustle thing, they take for granted all the time that you have, just the mental time or the drive time. Because like, I was using that hour and a half. I mean, I was driving, 8 hours a week. But I was using a lot of that time to talk to people and talk to sponsors and talk to just other friends and catch up. And then I realized, like, as I got in and started working for myself, that I didn't have that time. And so I was losing connection with people. And then like I had, more deadlines, and it was almost like I had less. It was the weirdest thing. It was almost like I had less time because there was a lot more pressure, right? Of just because I took on a lot more to, as we started to try to make it work. So, it was a little different, Tracy, because it was like each side of it, it's like I had physically obviously had more time, but then mentally I had less time because I was spending more time like doing the actual, ground and pound type stuff. And I couldn't think, I didn't have that time to spend like, at lunch at work where I'm just like thinking of ideas. Those were the things that I did lose, was like just that kind of calm brain time to spend thinking of how to grow, how to grow the business and like what's the next project going to be and how to do things. And even like responding on social media, if I was at lunch or wherever, I could just spend that time where it's like, if you're working for yourself, if you use that time, and I got caught in that trap. I was spending way too much time on social media at first, and I wasn't being very good. So yeah, it was very, very different going from a side hustle to a full-time.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges I think anybody has, whether they're tackling projects around their house or, building stuff, whatever, whether it's full-time or not. It's just that maximizing your time. Certainly if you have kids, right? It's maximizing your efficiency, spending those hours the best way possible. And I struggle with it constantly. And, but, like once you figure it out, I guess once you get into the kind of rhythm and the routine, and I know you guys talk a lot about that type of thing on your podcast, Made for Profit, because it's about, kind of building yourself as a maker in the business side of things. Yeah,
absolutely. We have, myself and John Malecki is my co-host there. We have Made for Profit podcast, and that kind of sprouted out of this whole side hustle journey. And we started the podcast before I went full time. And then I went full time at like episode 10 because I remember like it was obviously in the line of sight, and we were like, we got to get this started before you go full time, because so we can be like, oh, I went full time, instead of just saying like, oh yeah. So that has been a huge thing. Like time management, I think is so important, and it's something that I completely struggle with. Like I'm a natural born procrastinator. I don't know about you guys. Like I work really well. And I think that was an interesting thing about working the side hustle. Like I always knew I had like between 9 and midnight or 9 and 1. And so I was like so efficient between those hours because I was just in the shop trying to get stuff done. And then I think that's, it's like the kind of law of time expansion or whatever. It's like you'll take as much time as you have, right? So if you need to build something and you've got 4 hours, you'll get it done in 4 hours. But if you've got 8 hours, it'll take you 8 hours.
Right.
And I kind of fell into that. So I think like having a set time block and saying, here's the items that's really what started helping me is as I started like laying out items and kind of thinking like, okay, how long is it going to take me to cut all the parts down to size, right? And think about that and like really start thinking through the actual steps versus just saying, I'm going to go out and work on a planner today. Like, well, what's my goal for today? Like, do I want to be done with the base? Do I want to have it sanded and finished? Like, what are the things? And that's what really, I think, changed for me is getting those set defined goals for like any time that I'm in the shop. I've got a goal of what I want to have done by the time I leave and knowing the steps, like thinking ahead so that if I need to apply finish, that I'm thinking like, okay, do I have all that finish on hand? How long is it going to take to dry in between? Am I doing some really dusty operations beforehand so that like if I start finishing, that's going to be a big problem because I'll get dust all in my finish? Like those are all the little things that you really have to plan out to get like an efficient, 4 hours in the shop or 8 hours versus like, I think it's a lot easier to have an efficient like 2 or 3 hours in the shop because there's only so much you can do.
Right.
So what's the goal of Fix This, Build That? What would you say like the goal behind the business or your mission statement, I guess? What do you hope to achieve with the brand?
Yeah, so the one I go for a lot is educate, inspire, and entertain. So in woodworking and DIY, and so I do I do the YouTube videos, and I try to do some humor in there. A lot of dad jokes. So if you like dad jokes, that's the spot for you. Bad puns, everything like that. And what I try to do is bring it down and make it that it's easily digestible and that it is more slanted towards the beginner than it is, advanced. So you're not going to see me cutting, hand-cut dovetails or doing any crazy stuff. I do a lot of, really approachable joinery, pocket hole joinery, but then I'll mix things in. So my goal is to kind of take people who may have started, maybe they build a plan off of Anna White's site. You hear that over and over again. Yep. And they want to get that next level. So what's that next level? So maybe I'll have a base that's really simple, but then I'll have like a nice walnut top to it or something. So my goal and my mission statement is kind of inspire people to continue building and go to that next level. But also, some people discover me and that's how they get into woodworking, so that they might not be searching on Anna White, like they might be on YouTube looking for an easy project. And so I dabble in that. But that's basically what I'm looking for, is just to get people building with their hands, because I know how rewarding it is. And I know, especially for a lot of Gen Xers who are like, they're in their mid 30s and they're figuring out like, what do I do with myself? And I want to get back to I want to do something with my hands. I feel like that's a big part of my audience, is people who are just like, I want to build something, but they don't know where to start.
So where do they start? Like, what are some easy beginning projects that anyone can start with? A new homeowner, for example.
It depends, right? It depends upon like how adventurous you are too. Because like some people just start, they're like, I want to build, like a huge bookcase or built-ins, and they just go for it. And that's awesome. But what I always recommend people to do is start with something that you're going to have success with, right? Because you don't want to go in and go for that built-in bookcase and then you fail and you're like, this is horrible, I don't want to ever do this again. I actually just put out, earlier this year, I think, 3 organizational projects for your kitchen. And they're like super simple stuff. So it was like a spice rack, like a drawer organizer, and then a pot lid holder that you can put on your cabinets. And it's all made from just poplar, like either 1x3 or 1x2 material. And I even I went and grabbed one of those like legit like hand plastic miter saw, the miter boxes. Yep. Right? So that's one thing. It's really funny, as an aside. It's really like YouTube comments, they're just gold. I'll go in there and they'll literally be right next to each other. One person will be like, this is ridiculous. Nobody has these tools. Like, why are you using, like I can't have that. Your shop costs $100,000. You get those comments. And then like literally right beneath that, it would be like, why on earth are you using a circular saw instead of a table saw? Like, that is going to be so much more efficient to use. So right. It's like
you can't win.
You can't win, right? So, but I always try to meet people on the front end of it. So, that's the one I went super basic with, is like, you can build stuff with just a handsaw and a miter box, and like for $40 worth of tools, you could make some cool little organizational things for your kitchen. So that was one I just came up with. But then in general, I always like to tell people to build stuff for your shop. Because, when you're first starting building, you're going to mess things up. And it's like, you don't want to have that coffee table in your living room that you blew the corner out on and, have these huge gaps filled with like putty and bad stain job. Like, mess up your shop furniture first. So like, make some cabinets for the walls. I do a lot of cabinet plans. Shop build out's kind of one of my niches. And so I have some free plans for that. I do a combination of plans that are, some are free, some are paid. And that's always recommend to people is like, start on your shop, like hone your skills, building things for your shop, and then start doing things for your house.
Yeah, and there's so many resources out there now for sure, as far as, plans and just accessibility to tools and all that stuff. So there's I think most people tend to get down this rabbit hole as a maker or builder or all that stuff, out of necessity. They end up, I need a coffee table, or I need a side table, or I need, whatever, an entryway table or whatever. And then they just do a quick search, on Google, and somebody like Brad or any number of people will pop up like, oh, I really like that. Oh, look, he's got plans available. Oh, I'm going to get those plans. And then that's how they kind of jump down this slippery slide, and then they become, all of a sudden, they're a maker.
Yes, like that reward of seeing somebody build it is just so awesome. And seeing like different takes. Like, some people will take my stuff and I'm like, wow, you did a way better job than I did making that. Like, can you come do a guest blog post for me? Because you just crushed that and made mine look like poo. So it's really fun to see that. And, I'll get emails, Facebook posts, Instagram, of people sending it through. And when they say, hey, I've never built anything before, and you inspired me to build something, like, those are the most rewarding, because you're like, yes, like, somebody just got hooked and now they're going to go do their own thing. And, some of those people have even like become bloggers. It's like somebody who was following me like 3 or 4 years ago, and now you see them like doing their own thing or doing the influencer side, is really, really cool, really rewarding to know that, again, that, educate, inspire, and entertain, that you can inspire people to, basically they're changing their lives. Whether it's just internal fulfillment or actually starting to get like another revenue stream for helping support their family. I
mean, we see it a lot. Brad and I run into each other at a lot of, events, Workbench Con and different events throughout the year. And you see that all the time. I mean, you're always seeing, new up and coming maker people who are like, oh, this is my account. They give you a business card or whatever. And I started making because I saw your video on XYZ, or I started doing this. And now, I started doing it more full time. And then it's crazy, because then you see, Brad's up there teaching classes about Instagram growth. And then, I did a panel with Carhartt about brand relationships and stuff. So it's kind of this like, I don't know, next generation of maker come up and about.
Right. And then they're teaching, like, some of those folks that, that were in our classes will absolutely be teaching in a year or two on whatever they have made. We've already seen it. Like, you see that happen. And it was the same thing, because I went to a blogging conference, Haven, which, is kind of now transformed a bit into the Workbench Con. But the Haven conference, like, I went in 2015. I went to my first conference when I tried to learn, like, what is this like blogging thing all about, and how do I make money doing it? And I went to that, and I was just like, eyes wide open and just drinking from the fire hose. And then, 2 years later, I taught an Instagram course at Haven, then, at Workbench Con and Spring Make. And it's really fun to see people latch on. And it is. It's just like, you'll see somebody brand new who's in the audience, and then like legitimately the next year they could be teaching. Like, it's that, I think that's what the cool thing is about our space, is like, there's still plenty of room. There's tons of people out there doing it, but there's plenty of room. There's people breaking through. Like, every year you see new folks that are coming on and they hit their niche, whether it's in Instagram or in YouTube, that, whatever they find a unique twist that is unfilled, and they just kind of go with it and have their own style that people latch onto.
Yeah, and you've highlighted quite a few people like that on your podcast, on Made for Profit, when people have just kind of come up and taken over and transitioned their whole life from being, working the corporate America job, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I'm a full-time maker now, doing whatever, building furniture or making content or whatever it is. So it's pretty cool. And for those of you who want to check it out, just look for Made for Profit, you guys are on pretty much every podcast platform at this point, right?
Yeah, we should be available everywhere. And madeforprofit.com, you can go there and get links out to, if you want to add on Apple or Stitcher or Google Play or whatever, you can check that out. But it's really cool to see. It was really funny. I'm just last night, I was at a dance recital for my daughter, which was its own. That was our first exposure to that. And let me just tell you, that's interesting.
A southern dance recital.
Yeah. No, it wasn't like it wasn't like whatever that horrible show on
Toddlers and Tiaras,
Lifetime, or It wasn't Toddlers and Tiaras, but it was close. But I was there, and I ran into an old friend of mine that I went to college with, and then I worked with her and her husband when I was in Cincinnati. So I hadn't talked to them or seen them in probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And we started talking. He's like, "What are you doing now?" And I was like, "I'm a full-time YouTuber." And he was like, "What?" And so it's like, thinking of that, like that just wasn't even, like whenever a couple years ago, you think like a full-time YouTuber, you thought like, people making cat videos or just like the vloggers and these kind of outlandish people, but it's a legitimate way to earn a living now. And, that's like me and you guys and our peers out there that are doing this, that it used to be all network TV. And now as everybody's unplugging and people are going to different media streams for content, that YouTube, so many people, like I hear all the time, they're like, I don't have anything. I don't watch any of that stuff. I don't even watch Netflix. Like YouTube is where I watch all my entertainment. So it is like its own network. And we all have our own little channels and shows. And, some of us publish more regularly than others. I haven't published a video in like 3 weeks. So,
it's
I would be a really bad
man.
network TV. Yeah, exactly. I'd be a really bad network TV show. But people come and they can come find that content, and it's searchable. And, we're out there helping people. And on the flip side, we're helping brands and sponsors share their message. So, it's a great combination where you can add value to the end user and at the same time, help shed light on people who, and brands and sponsors who are trying to get in front of that same audience who, like, they just don't know about them.
So what do you want to learn next? What are some skills that you want to add to your channel, your blog?
Yeah, I've been trying to get more and more into metalworking. So I went to Spring Make, which was what last time, Aaron, we just saw each other recently in Cleveland. But the year before that, it was more of it wasn't like an open conference. It was a kind of invite only. And that was right on the heels of the Workbench Conference, which was another kind of maker conference down in Atlanta. And I was fortunate enough to get an invite to that. I had met the Lincoln folks there at the Workbench Conference, and I had never welded before that, but I'd always wanted to. And so I got my hands on a welder. I was like, man, this is amazing. They invited me up there, and I got a welder in the shop now. I've made a few projects, but I haven't. It's like one of those interesting things that it's very complementary to woodworking, but it's very, very different in terms of just skill set, even like power needs. If you're running like a 240 volt welder, and then just the amount of dust and nasty that metalworking makes compared to woodworking. And I don't want to mix those two. So I've been like trying to figure out like, how do I cordon off a spot for metalworking so I don't, because like you don't want metal shavings like, near your woodwork, like that's really bad news. And so I've been trying to figure that out. And so I've not been able to make as much headway as I wanted to. So that's probably the biggest thing is like, I've only welded like 3 table bases, and there wasn't a square side on any of them. So I need to get better at it, and I need to practice. I'm just trying to find the space to do it. So that's something I really want to get into.
Yeah, there's also that, like, from the content creator side, it's like you don't want to outkick your coverage as far as like your audience. You want to attract the audience or show them how to do stuff. But if your audience is more of a beginner or introductory, it's like you don't want to throw a barrier up right away, right? Where people are like, oh, yeah, well, if I had that, I could do it too. Or, so I get that. I get that as well, because it's like certain people want to see, minimal metalworking, where some people are like, oh, I'm a little bit more of an intermediary. And so it's tough to kind of make stuff that people want to watch and make sure that you're, from a business perspective, you're getting the most eyeballs possible. So there is a little bit of that balance back and forth, which can be challenging.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that as going full time that I've realized, and I do it. I've always approached it as more of a business versus like there's a lot of there's a lot of makers out there that they're just like, I'm just a maker. Like, I just want to make and I don't care. And I'm like, whatever. And people can come if they want to come. Like, I don't approach it like being 17 years in corporate America. I'm very business oriented and all about, a P&L statement and like efficiency. And so I've always looked at it like that. So I do put those blinders on, Aaron, when I'm looking at like the project. And that's why I still do a lot of things with like pocket hole joinery, and I don't own a Festool domino, because as soon as you whip out that $1,000 tool to make, glorified biscuits, that people are like, they immediately check out because they're like, I can never afford that tool. And so like, I'm not even going to watch this channel. So it does, like, you have to think about your audience. If you're trying to do this as a business and reach the most people you can. And there's plenty of people that just do the outlandish and crazy, like Jimmy DeRessa, like he's not worried about what his audience can do. He's making crazy off the wall stuff that is just so imaginative. And, his is more inspirational, where mine's more tutorial. And so I'm trying to think about, okay, what is the average person going to have in their shop? What are their challenges and how can I help them overcome those and kind of meet them in the middle ground and maybe show them some upper scale stuff. But then also, like if I use a bandsaw, I'll say, hey, you could also do this on a jigsaw, something like that. And it is one of those interesting things about running a woodworking business or a content creation business on woodworking, is that the spectrum is so wide, and you got to choose because you can't be everything to everybody either. So you kind of have to choose where you're going to be. And if, people want to learn how to cut dovetails, they're not going to come to my channel, and I'm okay with that.
What about your projects? Like what types of projects do you get the most enjoyment from? Or is there a project that stands out that's, like your favorite of late?
The funny thing is, I get this question. So I do a weekly live, and I'll actually be doing it tonight, as this is a Sunday when we're recording it. I've been doing a weekly Instagram live. Before that, it was a Periscope live. If you guys remember the Periscope days,
Twitter.
When that was the in thing. And I'd have to go back and see, but I've been doing that for over 3 years, and I've never missed a week, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I get asked that question all the time. Like people, the top 3 questions are like, how'd you get started woodworking? What's your favorite wood to work with? Which is walnut.
Walnut, yeah. And it's everybody's.
Yeah, walnut, but it's got to be. And like, what's your favorite project that you've built? And so it's funny that I've kind of been answering this, over the course of the last 3 years. And I built this sideboard. So it's just a small, I think it's like 42 inches wide. So it's not like a huge, big buffet type thing, but just a sideboard, 2 doors on the bottom, 2 drawers on top, and a reclaimed walnut top. And the base is painted like a gray. And I just love that project, but I built it like 2.5 years ago. So I keep thinking, like you said, recently, and I'm like, no, that's still, and then I kind of feel bad about it. I'm like, I need to top this because
that's the one one of the ones that I saw of yours that I was like, man, this is really nice. It's got the rough sawn marks on the top of the walnut. Yep. It just looks so, because it's a sleek kind of, modern side, whatever you call it, side table or whatever, but the top has a little bit of a rustic flair to it, and it's just like, right. It's beautiful.
Yeah, my wife and I like to say modern rustic farmhouse. Yeah, really, we just kind of combine them all together. That's kind of like our style.
I think that's the trend. The trend these days is like, how do I make Joanna Gaines' house or whatever? That's kind of like the thing.
Yeah, exactly. But you tie them all together. But yeah, for sure that one, because like I even, for the handles, for the pulls and the handles, I turn those on my lathe. So it's just, the reason it was my favorite project is because there were so many different techniques that went into that one piece, between frame and panel doors and some lathe work and working with that reclaimed top. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just one of my favorites because it's a little bit more involved. And like I said, I do a ton of shop stuff that I really love. Like my flip top is probably like my favorite project from a business perspective, just because that kind of put me on the map and kind of got me well known. But just from looking back and thinking about the project and what went into it, for sure that sideboard.
If someone was going to slowly get their feet wet, get started, a new homeowner, or someone who's never really built much, what are like the grouping of tools that you would suggest that they start with? Like, what does everyone need?
Yeah, that's funny because that's another question I get a lot, more through email. And we are actually literally, my wife has now started helping me, and she works with the team. Her name is Susan. It's like this anonymous person called my wife. And she's been helping me do some of the blog posts. And we're doing a whole blog post on getting started woodworking because I get that question all the time. And I keep asking it. And actually, that was the genesis of the podcast, was because we kept getting questions, John and I, about like, how did you go full time? How do you grow your social media? And so, I get that question all the time about what do I need to get started? And so we're putting together the post, and I think I had 8 tools on there. So I think like the most important, like when I think about when I got started, like a 3-piece cordless 18-volt set is like paramount. And when I say 3-piece, I mean a drill, a driver, and a circular saw, because you can get that for about $200, $150 depending, and like I think just some basic beginner brand. Like you don't have to go get the most expensive brand. I started out with a Ryobi tool set back when they were yellow and blue, and they work fantastic. And like when you're just starting out, you don't need the fanciest tools. So like that, something where you can drill and drive and use that circular saw to cut. A good orbital sander, obviously, because you want to make your projects nice. For joinery, I love pocket holes. So like something like a Craig R3, which again is about $40, and then you can really but even just between those tools right there, and then some obvious stuff like tape measure, pencils, carpenter square, that kind of stuff. Like even just having those items, you can build a lot of stuff, and just getting started. Because let's be real, like I think that's the biggest obstacle a lot of people think of is like, oh, they go and they look at the price of wood and like, oh my God, like I don't want to spend $150 on wood. And so they want to buy the 2x4s that are $4 a piece, right? And so they're going to build that Anna White style coffee table that is whatever, 10 2x4s or whatever it is to make it. And you can do that with very limited tools. And then, then that next level tool, like if you've got the money in the space, like maybe a miter saw. And like just with the miter saw, circular saw, drills, and a pocket hole jig, you can build a ton of stuff for a pretty small budget. And I always suggest folks for things when you start getting into like miter saws or table saws or anything like that, is looking used. Because like you can get really great tool deals on Craigslist, estate sales, auctions, and you can get in for the cheap. So, I always tell people that I built out my shop off of Craigslist for some of the more expensive items.
Because I moved out here from upstate New York, 12 years ago or so now, and when I came out, I literally had a duffel bag full of tools. Some a Ryobi drill with that old 5-piece Ryobi kit that came in a big plastic gray tub. That was like,
oh yeah.
I got rid of the tub and I just put the tools in a duffel bag and then threw a bunch of random stuff in there with it. And as I kind of built out, it was estate sales. I was hitting up a lot of estate sales, just finding stuff. And yeah, you can find some gems on Craigslist tools. Look for Craigslist tools. You can get some stuff you can get for free. I mean, a lot of times are just dumping stuff off, and it might have a little surface rust on it, but there's so many like good restorative videos and stuff out there that you can find to just clean up an old tool. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's junk necessarily.
Yeah, you could find a lot of people just want, especially I've found a couple where they're like old, like the older like craftsman stuff, like back when they were like solid metal and like kind of like the 50s, 60s craftsman stuff was really nice. And I've seen like their big belt sanders or their table saw or their radial arm saws or things like that. And you're right, like there's maybe a daughter or a son of an older gentleman that may have passed away that had a shop, and they're like, we don't woodwork, we don't know anything to do with this stuff. We just want to go to somebody who's going to use it. We want to put it in good hands, and they'll sell it for really cheap or even give it away, like you said. Like I've seen a lot of that, and I've been on the receiving side of some of that, where they're like, we just want to know that it's being used. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest things is as you get into woodworking and just building in general is like to let other people know that you do it. Because if you're that person and somebody's like, oh yeah, my friend's, father just passed away and they've got all these woodworking tools and they don't know what to do with them. They'll be like, oh, I think Aaron's that woodworker guy. I don't know, call him and see like if he knows anything to do with it, right?
Yeah, and I've hooked up a few friends like just around that have been like, I found out about a sale or something going on locally. I'm like, I don't need that, but let me text one of these other guys. And, I just got this place locally that was kind of going out of business. I actually called a few guys and was like, hey, they're getting rid of this sliding miter saw. They're getting rid of all this stuff. I don't need any of that stuff, but do you want it? And they're like, oh yeah, I'll go down there. And they get pennies on the dollar. You get a decent tool.
I find
that's
junk,
a great way to get wood,
and I bring
too.
it to Aaron
That's right.
to
She
restore.
finds junk. She's like, hey, what do you want this junk? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll take it. And then I'll just stack it up somewhere for 6 months. And I'll be like, I really want to do this project. I'll get to it. Never.
I brought him some
Yes.
rusty chairs yesterday, and I was like, I'm so excited about these. I found these for you. He's like, this is some good looking trash. Thank you so much.
I'm sure you get that all the time as well, where like people now know you can make stuff or fix stuff and do all that stuff. And then it's like, you're the first person they call and you're like, no, no, like I get it. And at this point now I'm like, can I make a video out of it? If I can make a video out of it, I'll help you out. If I can't make a video out of it at this point, I'm like, I don't have time. Or I'll try to coach you, but I just can't, I've been pulled in too many different directions like that.
Yeah, so how
Yeah.
do you find time to do stuff in your own home? Do you?
It's the same. It's exactly what Aaron just said. I mean, just like anybody else, I've got a long honey-do list, and I look at things, and that's the first thing I think about is this a video? Like, can I get content out of this? And if I can't, then it's like going to the bottom of the list. And unfortunately, and so, now I've started what I used to do is, and then it would just stay at the bottom of the list. And then I've realized like, okay, like those are probably the things I need to start paying people to come do, even though like it might pain me to pay somebody to do something. I'm like, I could do that, but I'm never gonna do that. And so, sometimes you just have to like call and, get somebody out to refinish your driveway, reseal it or whatever. You're like, I could do that. Well, yeah, I could do that, but it's going to take me 2 days. And, I'm not going to be making content during those, even though that's actually probably a bad example. That's one of those I've been waiting on.
Yeah, you should do that. That's good
I know,
content.
that is one. Actually, that's a funny story. That one, that I was feeling the same way about our playset. So I have this playset in the back. We bought our house in 2013 when we moved down here. And there was a playset in the back, and it looked like it got assembled, stained, and then that was it. And that was probably 5 years old, so it was really looking tough. And then we let it sit for 3 years, and so then it was really looking tough. And I was like, I need to redo this. And I was like, well, I'll just do a video. And I thought to myself, like, who wants to see a video on refinishing a playset? But I went ahead and did it. I actually had a sponsor join on, which was awesome. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I did it and I put it out there and it kind of was like, yeah, so. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, it took off. And it is now actually, I just got a notice from YouTube. Yesterday was 1 year ago yesterday when I launched it. And it has just under 6 million views on refinishing a playset. And I was like, yeah, maybe I need, because I think what it was, and after like reading through the comments, like it's that whole kind of like satisfying video where it's like you're doing the pressure washer and you're getting off all that slime, and it's just the the restoration, and everybody loves a good restoration project, from this to that, before and after shot. So I was kind of playing it down, and so it is. I was thinking, oh, nobody would ever want to see that, and now I'm like, well, maybe there is a thing there. So
I would.
There was a perfect brand tie-in too, right? Because wasn't it a pressure washer brand that you were using?
Yeah. It was Briggs and Stratton. Yeah, they were like, hey, we've got some new pressure washers coming out. Do you have any projects? And I was like, yes, I do.
Sure do.
So that's usually what it is I've got a full list, and then I wait until like some brand comes out about it was Home Depot the other day, or not the other day, but the other couple of months ago. They said, hey, we have a flooring thing. Do you have any need for vinyl plank flooring? I was like, well, it's probably not something I would put in my main area because we have hardwood already. But I was like, ooh, laundry room. I've been wanting to redo the floor because we got like a vinyl sheet flooring. Redid the laundry room with the vinyl plank, and that was perfect. So that's an interesting thing, is like I have a whole list, and then as soon as I can slot somebody with it, it'll like go from the very bottom of the list to the top. And I'm like, yes, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it helps you dictate your content calendar, which is cool. But
Yeah.
I think one of the big things we try to do, and I try to do, and on the show we've talked about it a million times, is just like instill that confidence in people to get started, and it's just like that basic, you don't have to know everything right away, but it's never been easier to kind of find talented people like yourself that can give you some guidance, give you some pointers. And now even, through like your plans, for example, like a lot of the legwork has been done for you. I mean, you've come up with a cut list, you've come up with the components, the parts, everything that you need to get started. All you have to do is hit up Craigslist for a couple tools or whatever and get started if you really want to do it. And so, there's no excuse anymore for people, I feel like, who are like, oh, I wish I could build something, but I don't have this. And that's just an excuse. There's no excuses anymore. You can do that if you want to. I think you got some great plans available. You batched out some of your projects recently, right?
I did. I've been doing plans now for, gosh, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so. And I have, like I said, I've got a kind of a mixture of free and paid plans. But what I realized is that I have, and they're very inexpensive. They're between $5 and $9. But then what I realized is like people were buying multiple plans. And so I was like, well, I should combo these up and give people a great discount. And so what I did is like I packaged all of my plans together and did like a 50% discount on like the entire package. And then I made a few other little bundles for like a shop bundle and a furniture bundle for folks. And I got a great response to that. And that instead of buying these individually, you can get the whole thing. And that's one of the things that people are looking at in my YouTube videos is they see my shop and they're like, oh, I wish I could have your shop. And I'm like, well, now you can.
Yeah,
you can build this all out. Like you could build the exact same stuff I have. So yeah, those are available over on my website. If people want to check them out, they can go see that. But I think it is a great way to reduce the barrier to entry, because it's exactly what you say. Like I think the other thing is not that people don't have an excuse that they don't want to get into it, is that so I always ask people, and I think I just shut it off because I, again, can't deal with emails as much anymore, but I always used to ask people, when people would sign up for my email list, I would have an autoresponder that would say, what's your biggest challenge? Hey, thanks for joining. What's your biggest challenge? And the three biggest things I've heard, it was amazing how consistent it was, were time, money, and shop space. So those are the three biggest obstacles I think that people are dealing with right now. And so when I make my content as well as the plans, I think about okay, how can I save people time? How can I make their shop space more efficient? And I can't really give them more time, but how can I make their time more effective? And so giving somebody a plan where it's they don't have to think about the design and what all pieces do I need. They just take the shopping list, go get the lumber. I've even got the supplies linked out, so Amazon links or Home Depot or whatever, so they can buy all the hardware. And then all they have to do is build, just follow the instructions. And I find that I've gotten that feedback a lot, is that I really enjoy your plans, because it just saves me time. I don't have to think about it. I want to build something, but I don't want to have to plan it all out. But I want to be able to, when my friends come over and they're like, oh my gosh, did you build that? They're like, yeah, I did. And they're like, I get this real feeling of contentment, but I don't need to know that I designed the thing. I just know that I built it. And so how do I get from, point A to point B the fastest, and how do I help my audience get there? And that one's been really, really great positive feedback from the audience, as far as helping them just to, again, use their time the most efficient, save money because they're not having to buy more material than they need, and they're not screwing it up by making the wrong cuts. And then, just giving them more efficiency in their shop and kind of utilizing their space better.
So when you want inspiration or you want resources, what are some sources that you enjoy going to, or some makers that you enjoy following?
I love Pinterest. Pinterest is just amazing for ideas. My two favorite spots are probably Pinterest and just Google image searches. Mm-hmm. As far as online, and between those two, when I have ideas, I try to. I'm not super creative. I told you guys earlier I was a mechanical engineer, so I think it's straight lines, straight up. And if you go look at any of my shop furniture, you'd be like, I see that, Brad. I see that. I've got all just slab plywood doors, and I think very linearly. So, but what I am kind of good at is taking pieces and parts and combining them together. So what I'll do is I'll look at Pinterest, I'll look at Google image searches, and just see oh, I kind of like this idea. But how do I make that my own? How to make it, have more storage? That's a big thing I focus on is just storage aspects of projects. So I'll add things in, or I'll take just a little detail out of one project and combine it with something else. And those two online spaces are probably where I get most of my ideas. But then the other one, as far as just furniture design, is hotels. Hotels are an amazing place to pick up ideas, because they always have really, if you like modern stuff, because that's what they mostly have, but is going in and just looking at the furniture in the lobby, looking at the furniture in the actual rooms, and just kind of seeing the designs and the construction, and how they look. And that's where I got some of the metal base designs were pulled from some pieces that I saw in hotels. I was like, ooh, that looks really cool. I could do that. And like, what if I made this out of wood instead of metal? And what if I did this or did that? So I think like hotels or just like businesses in general, like whenever I'm out, I'm always looking at the furniture, always looking at the furnishings and just thinking like, ooh, that's cool. I haven't seen that before. Or getting a little design element from something and trying to convert that into a piece that I would make.
It's so funny that you should say the hotel, because I always have told my husband I want like the hotel bathroom, because I think it's so brilliant how they do like the exposed underneath the sink is exposed, and then they have the shelves to put all the towels right under and no cabinets. And I don't know why we don't see more of that in people's homes. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, and they've always got amazing lighting in there too. I remember like whenever I'm in a hotel room, I'm like getting ready in the morning, and I'm like, ooh.
I look good.
No, I'm like the other way. I'm like, man, I need to turn the lights down in here.
I need more dull lighting.
They've always got that the double mirror, like the 2X mirror. You like turn that around.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I got to flip that thing back around.
Yeah.
I don't need to see any of my face at 2X. We're good there.
We are just looking at our Instagram account here. We got a few questions in.
Awesome.
We'll fire up some audience questions. The first one, I think we touched on a little bit, but it says, as a maker, is it hard to stay on top of personal work for your home and family?
Yeah, and it is. It absolutely is. Because, well, so this is, I didn't hit on this, so I'll go a different direction with it. For whatever reason, so I have 3 kids, 10, 8, and 7, boy, and girl. And for whatever reason, my daughter, we had some projects in mind, and those came up to the top of the list. And so I made her like a day bed, a dresser. I refurbed this little table for her, and then I most recently made a desk in kind of that same kind of farmhouse, rustic, modern style, whatever that I was talking about. And so those all kind of work together as a furniture set, if you will, And so I made those, and then just the other day, and it's been getting more and more frequent. My middle son was like, "Hey, Dad, why don't you ever make me any projects?" I'm like, like right in the heart. I'm like, oh. He's like, when are you gonna? Because he's sleeping on a mattress on the floor. So he's got a point there. Although he had a little bout with being scared of the dark, and we talked about. He's like, I want it on the floor, so I know there's nothing under the bed. And we're like, you're a smart dude.
Fair enough. Yep.
Yeah, but now he is like, and then he'll hit me with it. He'd be like, well, you built Macy the bed and the dresser and he like lists off all the stuff, and he's like, you haven't built me anything.
Well, now you got to get him out in the shop with you, and you can make it a father-son project.
Yeah.
I've actually been looking at doing that. Is like, how do I bring that in? Because I think that's something that a lot of dads that get enjoyment of working hands-on with their kids. And so I am trying to think about how to do that. But so trying to balance the needs and wants. So luckily, like my oldest son, we bought him like, since he was our first, it's like the first kid, they always get all the good stuff. So we bought him like some nice furniture set or something. So I'm like, yeah, dude, sorry, you've got that stuff. I'm not ever remaking that. Like, we spent good money on that. Like the other kids was like IKEA stuff. We're like, no.
We did the
like
same
number 3.
thing.
We put her in like a Rubbermaid bin. We're like, yeah, whatever.
So it's so true though. Our son's nursery was like all Land of Nod, like perfect. Then my daughter got like IKEA everything, and I'm like, I'll just upgrade the knobs.
I'll just swap it out. Yeah, add some IKEA hack furniture.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, let's see what else we got here. We said, okay, I've mentioned this in the show before that I kind of wish I had been an architect in like another life, because I really enjoy the design process and the building process. And so somebody asks, what is your woulda, shoulda been job or career? Like, do you have something that you could have seen yourself as if you're looking back at it now?
Yeah. It was not a mechanical engineer because been there, done that. I always thought that I would be, even though I probably wouldn't like it in the end, I always thought I'd be like a good litigator, because I could like point and counterpoint somebody to death. But I think that would just be a horrible job. So, but I always thought, I could really get out there, because I can like find a loophole and just like dive. I'd be like, well, no. Because last Wednesday, it was 2:30. And you said, but so like that, it's written in stone now. And yeah, I always, and who doesn't like a good like crime law story? So I was like, yeah, I could have done that in a different life,
in another life,
I'd much rather be a maker right now.
Very cool.
And then one more we got is now that you basically, as I look at my crutch for where my phone is,
he writes all his notes down.
Yeah,
his pants.
that's where I put them all. Now that you kind of do your hobby as a business, what do you do for fun?
Oh,
like
that's
what
a
types
good
of
one.
things do you like to do, since obviously your business has transformed into kind of,
But once you own your own business,
Yes.
you don't get to have fun anymore. Isn't that how it goes?
I guess, yeah, there's that. I mean, you don't have time for fun.
That's exactly, and that is something that I heard, and it was much more so back before I started doing this. I was making small goods, cutting boards, pencil cups, little signs, and things like that. And I was thinking, I can make some money doing this. And I heard that over and over again, that people saying, when you turn your hobby into a job, like you lose the passion and you lose the fun. So that is true, and to an extent. But what I was actually talking about before is like one of the things that I really enjoy almost as much as the making, and my wife might even say more, is the business side. So this might sound like sick and sadistic, but what I do, like I just like go and nerd out on like the analytics and the back end of it, of like trying to look at channel growth, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, and I'll look at the videos and see, what the retention metrics are, and where the people, the traffic sources, where are the people coming from, and what type of content resonates with what different audiences, and how do I make the next video better or build upon that, or how do I turn that into a different revenue stream? And like, that's what I do at like 10 and 11 o'clock at night now, is I'm just sitting there and I'll be doing that, in between Dude Perfect videos with the kids. But yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that, because and it's something I actually, that's like probably my biggest personal development thing, is to like step away from the business, because I am just so, it takes so much to drive your business. And as a side, when you're working as a side hustle, I mean, I think that's the biggest fallacy I see, is that, like, I'm trying to build a side hustle, but it's not working. I'm like, well, okay. They're like, dude, did you see Game of Thrones last night? And I'm like, no, I haven't watched any TV in like, 6 months, because I spend every waking hour outside of my family and my day job on the side hustle. And so I kind of got in that mindset for 2 or 3 years of where I was just constantly dedicated, and I've not effectively turned that off. So that is something that I'm looking to do, because I used to play guitar, I used to, play golf, and, do things outside that I had before I was thinking about any of the side hustle or any of that, just, in the first kind of 10 to 15 years of working the day job. And now I'm kind of like all in on my business, and it's been great. Like on the flip side of it, I've had tremendous growth in my business on, all accounts. And I would say that that's because I've put so much into it. But at the same time, I know that if I continue to do that, I'm going to burn out. And so I need to get back into like stepping away, and even like stepping away from making, and just, getting into whatever it is, playing guitar. My family and I were just talking about learning a second language. My last name is Rodriguez, and I do not speak Spanish, so I feel like a fraud completely. So we're thinking about learning Spanish. So like stuff like that, because I think if you get too tied into your business, like I've not burned out, but I can see it on the horizon, right? I'm like, I have to step away and have something that's another outlet for me. And that is hard, because, if you're making, like, I don't think I could make a project for a hobby because I would think, I should be making content on this, right? I would feel this guilt of not being able to effectively utilize what I'm doing. And I'll be like, I made this awesome thing, but I'd be like, this would have made such a great video. But, because I hear people do that. They're like, I'll make some projects and I won't even fill them. And I'm like, how do you do that? I would feel bad about doing that. So I want to do something completely separate.
Yeah, that work-life balance is tough, especially when it, when you're that close to the fire, as far as like, this is your hobby, this is your business. It's like, trying to figure that out, and then managing your outside life as well can be a real challenge. But
yeah, I think free time goes to family when you are running your own business. That's the hobby, not the hobby, but like that's the extracurricular time is family time and then stuff around the home. And there aren't many hours for much else. It can definitely be hard.
But it's cool. I mean, it's like you know, being at home now, you're not losing those hours in the car, and so you're around for your kids and all that stuff. So there's obviously that benefit is awesome.
Yeah, it's been the most rewarding choice and decision that we've made as a family. Like I said, my wife did go back to work when I went full time, and then now she's working with the business as well. So being here with our kids in the morning, putting them on the bus for school, getting them off the bus when they get home. It's amazing. And it is that exactly what you said, Tracy. Our downtime is the kids' soccer games, the dance recitals, and then, my wife and I will like Netflix and chill quite often. So I guess that would be my hobby, I guess, is watching some great Netflix series.
What's
if you
your
guys
favorite
haven't seen
thing?
The OA. Oh, the OA. Is awesome.
I saw the first season.
Check it out. It's if you like kind of sci-fi little kind of.
First season was good. I haven't seen the second season yet.
Oh, you got it.
Always looking for a new show.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We appreciate your time. Where can people find more Fix This, Build That?
Yeah, my website is basically the hub for everything. So fixthisbuildthat.com, and you can have links there to my Instagram and YouTube channels as well.
So he's killing it on Instagram. He's all over the place. You can find him on YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, everywhere.
And the name of your podcast again for everyone?
It's Made for Profit. So Made FOR Profit. Made for Profit.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation today, guys.
Thank you for
Brad.
carving out
Appreciate
the time.
So thanks again to Brad for joining us. And we want to say thank you to you guys for listening and following along. Make sure that you are following us on social media at howtohome_guide. And thanks once again to FilterBuy as well for making this series possible. We couldn't do the show without them. So thank you very much for that. And don't forget to rate us on your various podcast listening apps or hit that like button on YouTube if you're choosing to watch the videos. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time.